Hey guys, welcome back to Simplified Gardening. I'm Tony O'Neill, and like I said, this is Simplified Gardening, where I show you how to garden in a simpler way. If you want a perfect garden to relax and or just want to grow your own nutrient-dense foods, then start now by clicking the subscribe button and the bell icon. Then click all to be notified each time I release new content just like this. Now, I've only just gone live. This is my very third time. I've got 188,000 subscribers, and this is the third time I've gone live. This is going to be a series called Gardener's Question Time. And it's a series that I'm producing because I'm having a few issues in being able to answer all the comments. I'm getting thousands of comments from viewers now, and it's just, I'm spending hours and hours and hours every single day just answering your comments, and it's getting to the point where I can't keep up with it, and some of you now won't have had comments. So what I've decided to do is this sort of series of videos where I will answer some of the questions that you've got and that have been placed and I've not been able to get around to. So I'm going to answer some of those, and I've decided that when I release a new video, I will spend that day of the video's release answering comments. So if you want to get your comment answered, then it's best that you come and view the video on the day of release, and that way it enables me to sort of give the bulk of my main viewers the answers they require, and then we'll fill in with videos just like this then for any other sort of comments that we've got. I've got a few things that I want to discuss today as well, and I'm going to get to some of the comments as we go. So I think what I'm going to do is just say hello to a few people first. So I'm going to have a quick look in here. Hi Tim, Liana, we got Mike Jones here, So Enchanted, Vanessa, Anne, Glyn, Laurie, Peter, is that Big Kel, and Jesse. Welcome, guys. Now, I'm going to find it quite difficult to scroll through these comments on here again, but we will have a look at some of those later. I have got some that I want to get through as well. But this video will also help me as well. As you know, you've seen the studio in previous videos and everything else. The weather is absolutely crazy at the moment, and I don't know if some of you know that for the last sort of week and a half, Wales has been in full lockdown again. So I've only got the studio. It's absolutely belting down outside. The garden is just absolutely trashed. One of the greenhouses on its side again. The weather we've had here has been crazy. So the studio and these types of videos are going to allow me to continue producing content where I'm able to provide those answers. And I've got a little bit of things coming up for you later on that I think that some of you will like as well. Anyway, let's get to the first question, which comes from Trevor, who comes from Swindon, and he gave me this question via our Facebook group. And it's basically, why are you doing house plants? Are you stopping growing veg? So a couple of weeks ago, I put on here a couple of videos of setting up the grow room, which is just up the back here. And I had a few people who were a bit miffed over it. Now, again, like I said, the whole idea behind the house plants, I've always wanted to do them. I've had them at home, but I've not had the space to film at home with 3 children running around, and you know, we're in a 3-bed terrace. It's just not enough room to film there. So now I have the studio. I'm able to set up the plant room there, and you know, and go from there. You know, so that is why I've got around to doing the plants. Now, Trevor, before we go any further, this isn't a replacement for all the veg videos and the growing your own and everything else. You're still getting the exact same amount of content, okay? But the plants are going to be additional videos. So instead of me just producing 1 video a week, I'll be producing 2 videos a week, and that's enabling me to step up the content for you guys. So for those of you who want to watch the plants, they're going to be on a Tuesday, and the veg and the grow your own stuff is going to be on a Friday as usual. So that's what that way easier for me to split it off. So if you don't want to watch one, you can just skip it and view another. The other thing it does, it allows me, if the weather's really bad, because of the issues I'm having with work, we half of the station has been off with COVID-related illnesses, whether they've had it themselves or they've had to isolate because of other people. And so I've been working loads of extra hours, but then when I come home, it's absolutely tipping down outside and I can't get in the garden and film. You can garden in that, but you just can't film in it. You know, the last thing I want to do is pull out really expensive camera equipment and risk ruining it. And again, it's poor quality anyway, because you got the sound of the rain and you're having to shout over it and everything else. So it doesn't make for a quality video. So now I'm able to come here, I can film the plants on really poor days and then film extra videos for the veg on better days. So you're not losing anything, you're gaining, if anything else. Okay. So let's have a look who else has come in. Claire Bays, Vanessa, Anne, Glyn, Laurie. So there's still quite a few of you still around. And Miss Wee Lassie has come in as well. So welcome to all of you guys. So the next question we've got is from Jean from Oklahoma. What size containers do you use for your potatoes? Jean, the containers I use are 30 liters or 8 US gallons. It means you're in the US. Now, I know you folks in the US are having problems finding these buckets with the handles, and I am looking for suppliers for you. If I can find one, great, you know, I'll put links for those. But we did find one at one point, but they just they got a little bit greedy and they whacked the prices straight up. So I removed the link straight away. As soon as they knew that someone was pointing to them for them to get it, they pretty much doubled the price. And that's, if a company is doing that, I'm not interested in them. You know, I only want to promote things for you guys that are going to make it viable for you to be able to use, you know. And that's why I've always promoted Oakland Gardens. They're great, you know, they're really good quality products and they're cheap as well. So so that's why I've always stuck by them. Right, next question, Melvin. Right, he's asking, do I get the same variety of avocado when I plant a pit? So this has come from the avocado video that I did where I planted from pit through to plant. Now, Melvin, sorry. When you plant a pit, you don't know what variety you're going to get. Now, and the reason for this is most trees are grafted, and they're grafted so that they can get a quality rootstock that will push the tree to the desired height they want, or so for the vigor and things like that. But then they graft on a top of a specific fruiting variety. Now, when you grow that pit from the fruit, you're going to get the genetics of the fruit, but it may not have the genetics that come through the graft itself via the rootstock. So although you may have a tree that's like 10 feet, when you plant that pit, that tree could get to 40 or 50 feet. You will get a very similar tasting fruit though. So grafting from the best way to do it is to graft. But what I do with mine is that when I grow them from a pit, I then use them as a rootstock. They make fantastic rootstocks, and then I graft on. And that's the quickest way, because another question a lot of people have had lately is, how long do I have to wait for fruit? Now, with the avocado, you're looking at 8 to 10 years before you'll get any fruit at all. So the best thing to do is to graft that tree at about a year old. And then that way, if you know you've got good scion wood from a known fruiting variety, and then that's great. And while I'm at it as well on avocados, there's a few questions that have come up lately with regards to colder weathers like the UK and other places. Can you grow avocado outside? And the answer to that is yes and no. And you may be thinking, what's that about? Avocados do fruit and they fruit well in the UK, but in microclimates, okay? Now, there is a 30-foot avocado tree in the centre of London that has fruited every year for the past 10 or 12 years, and it's laden. There's so much fruit on it, you won't believe. But we all know London is like a microclimate. So if you were putting that same tree out onto your garden and it doesn't have that microclimate, I think it might struggle. So just bear that in mind. Another way to do it would be to graft that onto a rootstock that it is like a dwarfing rootstock. So that way you could keep it in maybe a conservatory or something like that. Anyway, so Mark asked, why are you selling out to companies like lighting companies and other companies? Mark, I appreciate the question, and you're not the first person to say it, but I don't see it as selling out. And before you guys jump down the bandwagon of, oh yeah, you've promoted a product, you're selling out, I just want you to consider something, and this goes for all creators out there, not just for myself, okay? Creators give huge amounts of time to the videos that they produce, and I'm talking huge amounts. And to give you an idea, let's look at that lighting video that Mark has, is it Mark? Sorry, yeah, Mark has mentioned here. That lighting video, I was testing out the green screen. Yes, it was poor quality, but the lighting video had to go out at a certain time. But the quality of the video was still a lot of information, and I wanted to do it to show people how to measure light. Now, to produce that video, I had to purchase a quantum power meter, and I purchased this secondhand out of my own money, and it cost me £250. So not only did that video take about a week of my life to produce, because I had to literally script the video in the first place. I then had to go and edit the video. I've had to film the video, and then I've had to do all the SEO and everything else to put that video out. And it took all day to film, because trying to get the shots I needed was hard work, especially in an enclosed environment like this. So not only did it take all of that time, it cost me £250 to make as well. Now, in that video, I promoted a light, which I believe in. Now, I'm not promoting products I don't believe in. The lighting unit, I had one the year before, and I believed that it works that well that I have no problem shouting out that product, because I know it's not going to come back to bite me in the ass when, you know, someone says, well, this is rubbish, it doesn't work. I'll never promote a product that I don't think is worthy of you guys owning. But not only did I could have just stopped there. I could have had the light from them, promoted that, done the video I wanted to do, and just stopped there, but I didn't. I spent 3.5 days on the phone and via emails with this company to get a unit to give away to you guys as, you know, something as a give back as well. You know, I didn't need to do that, but I did that. But as far as selling out, you know, I don't think so. You know, when you consider that I've been making these videos for the last 10 years, and in all that time, Mark, you've never had to pay for one of my videos. It's been totally free of charge. I have spent 10 years. So, you know, I'm 46, and just a quarter of my life I've been making these videos for you guys. And, you know, there are costs involved, and we have to recoup those costs. And it's the same for every other creator out there. This studio doesn't come free. I've got to pay for it. The equipment that we use doesn't come free. And yes, we choose to buy these, or I chose to make the studio or anything else. But as you get bigger, you want to make the quality better. And I don't just mean the quality of the video, but the quality of the information you're giving. Now, I could have just done a light video where I just put the light up and said, oh yeah, this is doing really well. I had a look at the plants a little bit later on, but I wanted to measure those lighting levels and show you where you need to be with your plants and everything else. And to do that, it costs money. And I'm sorry, Mark, if you feel that it's a sellout. Unfortunately, it's a way of life. If I asked you to give me a day of your life, I expect you'd probably charge me for it. It's just a fact of life. And for me, eventually, I love doing this. I love making videos for you guys. I love gardening. I love everything it is about this. Now, most of you know I'm a firefighter, and I would love nothing more than to give up that job and do this full time. But to do that, I still have bills to pay, and I still have a family to support who I love very much. And I couldn't justify quitting a job if I couldn't support them. So for me to do this on a permanent basis, which is what I'm aiming to do eventually, then I need to find ways to monetize it, if you like. And I worked really hard in monetizing things without it costing anybody anything. I've never run a crowd fundraiser for myself or anything like that, or for equipment. You've never seen me do that. I've got even memberships for my channel, which I've not even actually started yet now. And a few people have said, well, put it on. And I've been very reluctant to add that to the channel because YouTube takes such a big chunk of it. But I've done other things instead, like, I'm writing books and courses and things like that, which will all be coming out very shortly. So there are things that we're doing, but the videos themselves here are not costing you anything. There's a link in the description. Whether you choose to use or not is up to you. I find it quite offensive, to be honest with you, that you think that people who put those links in and things like that are selling out, when in reality, it's very easy to say that when you are not around this sort of lifestyle, if you like, because that's what it is to us. And yes, initially, some of us will have started this as a bit of a hobby and things like that. But anybody who's done it for any length of time will tell you it takes over very, very quickly, and you end up putting huge amounts of your time and life and everything else into it as well. Let's have a quick look through these comments here. Right, Paddy Goes Racing is saying his YouTube channel is not doing too well. Paddy, what I'll say there, mate, is stick with it. Now, consider this, okay? I've been making these videos for 10 years. And it took me nearly 6.5 years to get to 5,000 subscribers. And then it took me a further 1.5 years, something like that, to get to 18,000. And then I went from 18,000 to 100,000 in the space of a year, which landed on my doorstep on May the 15th of this year. I had 100,000. If you guys go back in the videos, you'll see the live stream for that. Since then, since May 15th, we've done 88,000 new subscribers. It snowballs, mate. So the only people who never win on YouTube are those who quit, okay? It takes time to develop your repertoire, if you like, what sort of videos, your style, and also to get enough content online that YouTube can actually push out. And that's where the snowballing effect happens. Once you get over like a couple of hundred videos, then things start snowballing. And Monty will tell you, I gave a little bit of advice to him a few months back, and it's snowballing for Monty now. Just stick with it. Just keep producing videos. And remember, when you're producing videos, that it's always the end user that you need to consider. It's always, what's the next question that someone would have? Or you need to be responding to problems people have. And that's the best advice I can give you, really, Paddy. Let's have a look who else is on. So Chris says, hi, Tony, amazing YouTube channel. I learned a lot from you. Chris, thanks very much. I really appreciate that. I'm glad that that you're enjoying that. it takes time, guys. You know, it's not something that you fall into. We're not born making good content. You know, you'll have a look at a few of my earlier videos from when I first started, and they're cringeworthy. And it does really make you think, you know, what's going on? You know, why am I growing? And then when you look back at like what you're producing now and what you produced then, you know, we can but learn, and it's surprising what you do learn in this industry, you know. Okay, let's have a look what we got else here. So Charles G has said that he, for one, is happy about all the product recommendations and everything else. And Charles, thanks very much for that. I'm glad you're enjoying the content. Guys, like I said, you know, when I make those videos, there are associated costs with them, but I don't expect you to buy the links in the description. Only give a really small amount to kick back. And I'm going to give you an example. Up until about 5 or 6 months ago, Amazon, which most YouTube links are, was paying out around about 8% for a gardening product. Now, that's not additional cost to you. That's from Amazon, okay? But now, when the CV hit in March, they hit all creators with a cut on their commissions, and they reduced it down to 3%. And it's not really, when you think about it, it's not rocket science. Amazon was built on creators like myself putting out links and everything else, but now they've become a household name. They don't actually need us anymore. So, you know, when you consider if I was to recommend £100 product, and you went and purchased a £100 product, then Amazon are going to pay me £3 of it. It's such a small amount, you know, but every little bit helps, you know, and like I said, with creators, and a lot of the gardening creators will tell you there's, you know, there's software costs, there's, you know, computer costs, there's camera costs, microphone costs, everything costs money. And most people, I won't say all, but most people, when something goes wrong, it comes out of their own pocket. It does. They're not out there trying to get crowdfunding and stuff like that for more equipment, or if they've had something stolen, crowdfunding as well for more equipment. You know, so let's get back to a couple of these now. So Sarah asks, why do her tomatoes end up with big brown splodges across the bottoms of them? Sarah, this is down to a calcium deficiency. It's called blossom end rot. Now, a lot of people think, oh, well, I've got a calcium deficiency now. The first thing I've got to do now is go adding, you know, sort of calcium to my soil to get my tomatoes to take it up. The biggest cause of that calcium deficiency is irregular watering, okay? It's where you've watered lots and then you've allowed that soil to dry out. Now, what happens on tomatoes is they have very fine hairs growing around their roots, and those hairs grow very fine roots themselves, and they're the feeder roots. Now, when you allow that soil to dry, those feeder roots then actually dry up and they break off. Now, when that happens, the plant can't take in the calcium it needs, so it then ends up sacrificing the fruit so that the plant can support itself. And that's what's happening with the blossom end rot. Now, the best way to deal with this would be to give an Epsom salt spray, a foliar spray. So mix up some Epsom salts into like a litre of water and spray that on the plant. That will give an immediate effect for the plant, okay? The plant itself will be fine, but you need to then increase your watering so it's more consistent, so that doesn't happen again, and they'll grow those fine roots back and it'll start feeding again. And for the fruit that doesn't have that, they'll be fine to eat and everything else, but the ones that have blossom end rot obviously are no good to you. All right. Chris asks, what do you use to get rid of whitefly? Chris, whitefly can be the bane of loads of gardeners' lives, especially in the brassicas and things like that. Now, a really good way to get rid of them would be to hose them off or using a soap solution. But I found by far the best way to get rid of it is a product called SB Plant Invigorator. And it's basically a soap-based solution. It's totally organic, and you put like 1 ml into a litre of water and you spray this on. Now, what this does is it coats the white fly and it suffocates them, and a couple of sprayings of that and it pretty much eradicates them, and it's really good. And the good thing about that as well is the SB Plant Invigorator coats any eggs and things like that as well, so it knocks on the next thing because it suffocates those eggs as well, so they can't hatch out. All right, the next question comes from Sam. Is there really a point to composting? What's the benefit to me? Sam, yes, and yes. Compost, all right. Composting is the life of your garden. Now, where there are so many different ways to compost, but without it, you cannot feed your garden. Too many people think that they can go and splash on some Miracle Grow plant feed or something like that onto their plants to feed them, and they'll get great crops, which it does. But the really good gardeners know that you're not feeding your plants, you're feeding your soil. And to feed your soil, you have to feed the microorganisms. Now, what compost does is it builds those microorganisms. It supplies food for them to be able to multiply. They then eat each other, and I know it sounds a bit harsh, but it's the same thing above ground as it is below. You know, one animal becomes food for another, and as they live, they are leaving their feces behind. They're eating and they're dying, and then their sort of bodies are decomposing and everything else, and that's the nutrients that are becoming available to your plants. The whole soil web, I've spoken about it so many times, especially in my compost videos, is a whole ecosystem that you really need to think about protecting, especially this time of year. Too many people scrape off everything or dig over their plots, allow the frost to get to it to break up the clodges. No. Take off the tops if you want to, but there has to be something else on that soil. Keep that soil, whether it's a mulch or a green manure or something like that, something that's going to continue feeding the microbes in that soil and keep them active all winter, because it's the microbes that are going to feed your next crop of food in the early springs and things like that. So the next one, Becca says, love your videos. What's the best ways to get rid of slugs? Becca, I've got a video on this, and like 6 ways to control slugs, and that's like bringing in nature into the garden and slug traps and things like that. But the must-do way for me is nematodes. And I've had a lot of questions about the nematodes, whereas people have heard about nematodes eating their plants and ruining, the root structure of their plants in this area. Like anything else in life, there are good and bad nematodes. Now, the nematodes that attack slugs are a good nematode. That's the only thing they eat is slugs. And basically what happens is the nematode goes in through the air vent that's on the slug, and it lays eggs within that, and they hatch out. And basically what it does is stops the slug from feeding. It causes indigestion, and then those nematodes hatch out and actually feed on that slug as it's once it's dead. You can make your own, because there are products out there called NemaSlug. They're very expensive, and you can make your own. But I've got a video on that, so search that out in the pest playlist. Playlist, and it will show you exactly how to make it. It's not hard, but it is a messy process. All right, but there are ones you can buy, like NemaSlug and various others that you could put on your garden. But when you do that, you need to treat your garden every 6 weeks when the slugs are active. Let's have a look around here now to see what's going on. So Susie Valentine says that she loves my compost videos. Thank you, Susie. I'm glad you're enjoying them. Funny enough, YouTube are pushing them quite heavily at the moment, and I'm supposing it's because there's a lot of space stuff that we're taking out of the garden now that we need to compost. Now I've got my compost bays. I've got to empty. I do plan on making a video on it with some tips as well, which would have been today's video, only that I just can't get out there. It's absolutely belting down here. So so on my next dry day, I'll get out there, I'll film that video for you guys, and we'll do a tips video based around that as well. Okay. Let's have a look what else is going on here. So Food Forest Permaculture is saying it's glad he's made the live as well. Okay, so let's get back over here. So Anthony says, in one of your videos, you say to rub off all but 2 chits. Why is this? So I'm assuming Anthony's on about potatoes. When you chit a potato, it'll have many shoots that'll come out, or sprouts, whatever you want to call them. Now, the idea behind removing all but 2 is because if you only allow 2 chits to grow, you can actually control the size of the potatoes that are formed. And the reason for this is, instead of the plant trying to support lots of green growth, which is foliage, then it can put the energy it has into tuber formation. And because you've rubbed off 2 of those chits, or all those chits but 2, then it's pushing out that energy. So you get fewer potatoes, but they're much larger. So if you're looking for things for jacket potatoes or, you know, chips, things like that, then there's a fantastic thing to do, is rub those chits off. Don't do it on new potatoes or first or second earlies, determinate potatoes, because they are potatoes that grow small anyway, and you want to get as many of them as possible. It's not needed. So these are for indeterminate main crop potatoes, and you can control the size of the potato that you're actually growing. But if you want a lot of smaller ones, don't rub the chits off. But that's why we do it, Anthony. Okay. So we've got another slug question. This comes from Jess, and Jess asks if eggshells stop slugs. I'm in the process of scripting out a video about garden myths, and eggshells and slugs are one of those garden myths. At no point will eggshells stop a slug getting to your plants if they want them. Okay. Now, I've seen slugs crawling across broken glass and everything else. That mucus membrane that they have on their foot, it protects them from everything. At most, it's a hindrance to them, but they will get across it if they want to. So placing eggshells around there, it's not going to do a lot. You're probably going to find that the slugs will get to your plants. There are far better ways. And again, go over to that slug video, the 6 proven methods. Just type slugs into YouTube search bar. I think it's like #1 video, so you will find it. You can't miss it. Tam asks, am I doing the Xmas Advent calendar competition this year? No. There's a couple of reasons for this, and the first reason is I need a break from it, guys. That competition takes so much planning, and we're talking 3 months of planning to get it working and everything else. And then every day through December, I've literally got to go in and open up specific pages on the website for you to go and see who the winner is, you know. And I wasn't going to do it last year, and I got talked into it, and I'd done it last year, and I had so much negativity from people who were annoyed that they didn't win, and I swore that I wouldn't do it this year. But the other reason I'm not doing it this year, and for those of you who are looking to buy things from Oakland's. Just to let you know, Oakland Gardens are going to be closed down between the 1st of December and the 1st of January because they are going for a refit. So because of that, they won't be selling anything either. Neither will they be sending out. And usually Oakland's are one of the sponsors of that giveaway. But I'd already decided before they told me that I wasn't going to do it this year. I need a break from it, guys. This is the first year out of 11 years since my kids have been born that both Tina and I are off work. So we will be having a family day around Christmas and the run up to Christmas. So I won't be doing anything like that. We're going to spend some time together. Let's get across to a couple of other things. Let's have a look who else is here. Eggplant, main crop spuds and daily pots. Presume still keep just 2 chits. Yeah, so Charles has just put up a comment now saying about the when you put in potatoes in the 30-litre containers. Yeah, just rub it down to 2 chits. Now, I've got a video on my channel where I've grown from just a single chit, and that was when I was trying to grow for a world record. So the number of chits doesn't really make a difference in you getting potatoes itself. All a potato is there for is to get that chit to grow, and each of those chits could become their own plant. But if you leave 2 chits on, whether you're growing in the ground or in containers, then that's the best way. Now, what I found is when I first suggested doing this, I had a couple of people saying, well, that's not what farmers do. But when you consider a farmer doesn't have the time, he's got to go and sow a whole field or maybe 100 acres of potatoes. You know, he doesn't have a windowsill to chit potatoes on. So they just get put out into the ground and they will go. And but he's certainly not going to sit there rubbing chits off. He's going to put him in the ground, and whatever crop he gets, he gets. And likewise, farmers don't chit either. And that was another comment that I've had over the last few years, is that, well, why should we chit? Because farmers don't. And farmers don't chit for that very reason. They just don't have the space to lay out all these potatoes to chit them. And it's time consuming. But as gardeners, we've got windowsills we can put them on. We've got that time that we can invest, so we can get a better crop for the space that's provided. We don't have 100 acres, but what we do have is good quality soil, so we can control what we're actually getting from our potatoes by reducing the numbers of chits and getting bigger potatoes, or leaving more chits and getting smaller potatoes. We have that control over it. But as far as potatoes go, like I said, you know, when you're growing in the containers, you grow in them exactly the same way as you would in the ground. But the containers have many advantages. Firstly, it doesn't have problems with slugs. So you can leave them in the containers all winter long if you wanted. As long as you had somewhere to store them out of the frost so that they can't get frosted, then you could leave them in those containers and just harvest them as and when you require them. The other thing is there's no wireworm damage. You don't damage them when you're digging them out with a fork, because there's nothing worse. It used to boil my blood that you'd get a really nice big potato, and when you're harvesting it, you've stuck the fork right through it, ruining the potato. It used to boil my blood. And it was one of the reasons that I went across to containers in the first place. But since growing in them, I'll never look back. You know, I've got really good quality soil. Some of you will have seen the soil I'm growing in. It's really good quality. But the slugs and the underground slugs and wireworm like to bore their little holes in them. So the containers prevent all of that. And some other questions I've been asked around the potatoes is, well, why do you think you get better crops in the potatoes? Now, some of you may have seen the ground versus container experiment that I did a few years ago, where we doubled the yield over the same amount of potatoes that were sown. And There's a couple of reasons for that. Firstly, the containers, you can control the environment. So you can control what goes in as a growing medium. You can control the temperature a little bit. You can water much more. So the water stays in the container rather than wicking out to areas of the ground around you that don't have any potatoes in. They are easily, able to be supported. But here's the thing as well. It's my opinion, when you're growing in a container, you put all that feed in a container and then you constrict that root ball all around the feed. So because you've done that, in the ground, potatoes are free to push their root systems out further and further. So if you're feeding at the base of that potato, all these roots out here are not getting that feed, only the ones around the actual base of the potato. Whereas in a container, the whole container is just one massive root, so therefore it has to take up that feed. And I think that's probably one of the best reasons for it. And again, they warm up much quicker because they're out of the ground. The sun hits that black container pot, and it does much better. And a few people have asked about, while I'm on it, about painting those containers white to reflect the sun in the summer. Well, if you do what I've suggested with like the cattle grid and hold up those homes instead of letting them flop over the sides, then that sun doesn't beat down on those containers. So you get the best of both worlds. So when the plant is small, the sun can heat up that container and get it going. But in the height of summer, the canopy is shielding the containers from the heat of everyday sun. So let's have a quick look through here, see if anybody's got any questions. I'm going to move the microphone a moment. So Rob from Leicester saying he grew 3 rows of spuds in the ground and ended up throwing a whole row away due to slugs. And it's a common thing I'm hearing, especially when you've got wet weather like we've had this year. I mean, this year has been an absolute nightmare, not just because of all the restrictions and everything else that's gone on, but the weather's been dreadful as well. We had a really... Well, I mean, if you look back earlier on in the year, in January and February, I was dealing with huge flooding here in South Wales, in work and what have you. I mean, most of South Wales was underwater. And then we went through that really hot patch in April and May. And then after that, it just died a death and it went to rain and it hasn't stopped since. So it's been a really bad year for it. Okay. Hi, Tony. So this is Save the Turtles. Hi, Tony. What seeds do you plant in November in the UK? This year, I'm not planting anything at all. I have got a few things in, like brassicas and things like that, but I'm purposely not planting anything. And the reason for that is because I'm still working on getting those sheds down that were on the extra plot I took over from Keith. So I'm still working on getting those down. And because of that, things are getting trashed and everything else. So I'm trying to not divide my time through the winter, and I don't want to be up watering huge amounts of plants. However, saying that, there are lots of things you can sow. There are spring greens, brassicas, things like that you can sow, but more often now it will be things like your onions ready for next year. So you can put in garlic anytime up until March. You can put in onions. So you got your winter onion sets. They should have gone in maybe a couple of weeks ago, but they can still go in right up to the end of November. But if you're growing like show onions or giant onions, things like that, they all need to be started now, as do the giant cabbage for next year. So if you're growing anything giant, you need to be looking at those type of things that take a long time to grow, There's not huge amounts. I mean, you can, if you've got a tunnel or a greenhouse, you can still sow lettuce. They'll be small and they will just tick along through winter, and they'll kick off early spring. Same thing with broad beans, all of those sort of things. So Rob's saying wireworm's the worst. Yeah, it's definitely a really crappy thing, mate. It's not very good. And if you've got wireworm, then you definitely need to be growing your potatoes in containers. Right. So Green Side Up saying, I found stock fencing can cut the stems or bruise or buckle them. Yeah, it could do. It's like anything else. I mean, if we're going to have really aggressive winds, then anything can break the stems. But what I found this year was if you raise that stock fencing up much higher so that only the tops are coming through, it doesn't create the movement so much because it fills that square hole, that 4-inch square hole. It's full of canopy, so it doesn't move about. And by putting it through as one big block, that'll also help support each other as well. And it's much better to do that and get a little bit of bruising on the tops than have them absolutely thrown over by the wind over the side of a bucket or something like that, where you're then trampling on them because they're sprawling across the floor. And you lose all the benefits then of like the shielding and everything else. So it swings and roundabouts. I mean, there are various ways you can do it. You could even use a timber trellis work just put on its side. You know, I used the cattle wire because that's what I had, and it was an experiment. And it was an experiment that worked really well for me. Now, it may be that we were talking about microclimates earlier on. It may be that your microclimate may totally have huge amounts of wind hitting it. Well, if that's the case, then maybe it's not for you. Like everything else in my videos, everything I'm putting here is what I'm doing and why I think it's the best way for me to do it. And I'm putting that information across for you guys to try. And if it's for you, great, use it. If it's not, then great. The thing with gardening is there are 101 ways to do something, and every single one of them are right. So I'll never, ever attack someone for like wanting to grow potatoes in the ground, because guess what? Potatoes grow well in the ground. I just find for me, they grow better in containers. And it's the same thing with tomatoes. You know, I support my tomatoes in a way other people don't. Talking to tomatoes, I can't remember who asked the question, but someone asked a question today, actually, about supporting tomatoes without using bamboo canes. And they were talking about building some sort of support structure with PVC. I don't like that idea. And the reason being is I think PVC for supporting tomatoes is quite smooth. And I think the weight of the tomatoes, unless you're really tying them tight, which is not good for the tomato, would actually cause the tomato to slide down. It's got nothing to wrap itself around properly. It's just too smooth, unless you were really roughing that surface of the PVC up. Okay, let's have a look if there's anything else here. But I got a couple more things I want to say then after this, and then we think we're going to knock it on the head, guys. Jennifer was going to start planting spinach in a cold frame, temps around 40 degrees F. Would they germinate? 40, yeah, they probably would germinate. Spinach is a cold weather plant anyway. You may find that they'll be a bit slow germinating. They might take a little bit longer, but they'll still germinate, Jennifer. Tracy, really enjoyed your video on how to make compost bins from pallets. Good. We're about to use that one for something else as well. I've got to dismantle it and move that. But like I said, the weather's been bad. So Tracy, there is another video coming with that bin. So stay tuned for that. And for answering the questions, I appreciate the time you've dedicated to educate and help all of us. Thank you, Tracy. I appreciate that as well. So Michael's asking, will bamboo work for loganberries? I'm assuming you're talking about for a support structure. Yeah, it'll work fine with them. I don't know if you saw mine on the fruit garden. I've just literally run 4 wires across from post to post on mine, like a trellis, as if I was espallying my grapes, and I'm actually training my loganberries up that, and that's working really well. So if they'll tie off to that, then bamboo will work fine as well. So Bigfoot is saying he's got 3 eggplants with flowers but no fruit. The issue you've got there is there's probably no pollinators around to pollinate the flowers. Now, if you were having issues, while we're at it, if you're having issues getting things to flower, spray the plant down with water and they'll shock them into flowering. So that's the first tip. The second tip is, if there's no pollinators around, the best thing you can do is get a little child's paintbrush and pollinate them yourself. It's so much better. But don't go from like eggplant across to tomatoes, because then you're crossing the pollination. But you can stay within eggplants and you can use the same brush on that. Likewise with tomatoes, one of the best ways to pollinate a tomato is with an electric toothbrush, and just put it on vibrate and let that vibrate behind the back of the flower, and that will allow all that pollen to just drop through to all the parts it needs to actually get good fruit for you. Okay, if pollinators are present, if you've got pollinators, then there should be no reason that they won't go, unless the temperatures are really low. But that's not likely. You probably find you just get deformed fruit if that's the case. If you've got pollinators there, they should go. So, is it Ritka Ace has said, would it make a difference if you plant tomatoes from seed or if you propagate from the plant by rooting branches of a tomato plant? Yeah, it makes a difference. From taking it from the shoots that you take off the tomato plant, you're going to get a plant much, much quicker. And it's a genetic clone of the parent. So this is very good. A lot of people now buy tomatoes that are grafted, and they use a rootstock called submarine. Now, if you wanted to keep your own rootstock so that you could do that, because submarine seed is expensive, you could grow a couple of submarine plants and actually take those cuttings, plant them so that they produce their own roots, then cut them off, and then you could graft your own tomato onto those. But essentially what you're doing is you're cloning the plant so you get the exact same genetics. So if you find a variety that you really like, then that's great. It also doesn't have the issue of heirloom problems. So if you bought an F1 variety, like Sungold tomatoes for argument's sake, then you can't plant Sungold seed and get the same variety of tomato out of it, because it will revert back to one of its parents. But if you were to take the offshoots that you pull off and actually root those and plant those, then you would get a genetic identical plant to Sungold, only with the Sungold's proper roots. So because it's an F1, you don't know what root system that would produce, because it may be that the Sungold was paired with another plant because of the root system, but essentially the fruit would be the same. Okay, can I use nematodes the end of October, beginning of November? Chris Clark. So Chris has asked, can he use nematodes at the end of October, beginning of November? The answer to that is no. The reason for this is you need temperatures around about 6 to 10 degrees soil temperature. Okay, so you're looking at sort of springtime for that to happen. Now we're getting the other end of it. So what's going to happen, even if you've got the nematodes to take and put them in the soil, it's not going to kick that balance off you. But as soon as that soil warms up to around about 6 to 10 degrees, then you can produce your own nematodes, get them in the ground, and they'll knock the slug numbers on the head for the whole season. So the earlier you can do it, the better, but you need that temperature in the soil, because as soon as it hits the soil, otherwise they'll just die. I have a question. Okay, so Samuel's got a question. He's basically living in zone 7A, 7B, and he keeps his greenhouse to around about 4 to 5 degrees Celsius all winter long. And he wants to know whether or not his garlic will bulb up. Yes, your garlic will bulb up. What I would suggest, Samuel, though, is garlic needs a period of around about 30 days to vernalize. Okay, now what vernalization, all it means is it needs to be put into a dormant state, and that's what helps the garlic split into cloves. Okay, so if it doesn't get that period of really cold weather, it needs to be below 5 degrees for that to happen. So what I would suggest you do before you're planting, if you're going to plant them in your greenhouse, is put your garlic in the fridge for about a month beforehand. And it's a bit late now, but you could possibly catch up if you're going to put them in, plant them in the greenhouse later. But there's no problem putting garlic straight out in the ground right away. As long as the ground is not frozen, you could put it straight out. I haven't even planted mine yet because, like I said, it's just been too wet. But as soon as I get a dry day, it'll be going in. But there is no issue at all with you putting it in a 5 to 6 degree greenhouse. You may find that it will drop below 5 or 6 degrees at night time anyway, and it might give it enough vernalization to get it, to split. But it will form a bulb, it's whether it'll split or not. But I have seen people planting garlic in March time, which has never had that vernalization, and they've split fine. But ideally, it needs that 30 days of cold weather below 5 degrees, all right? So Seaman has said, you're a natural in front of the camera, inside or out. Thank you. It's a lot of practice, mate. 10 years of this now. And it's funny because, you say that, but each and every time I don't get nervous anymore, but I still fret over making sure things are working. And a prime example, I came over here today at 12 o'clock, knowing full well that I wasn't going to start the live till 3 o'clock. And it's just as well because, like everything else, when you come down to equipment, the camera didn't want to link with the computer or the software that I'm using to stream, which is StreamYard. And for some reason, it didn't want to link. And I spent about an hour and a half to try and get it working. Fortunately, it worked and in time, and we're here. But thank you. I do appreciate that. Okay, so Rob's saying he's got a rust problem. So this is going to be the last question, guys. All right, so Rob's saying he's got a rust problem. Any ideas? Rust is an absolute nightmare for a lot of gardeners that are in damp, warm, humid environments, okay? And unfortunately, it's airborne and it's soil-borne. So if it's coming, it's coming. And there's not really a great deal you can do about it. I have got a blog post on dealing with rust on the website, simplifiedgardening.com. So go across and have a look at that because it's quite an in-depth answer about how you can tackle it, because it's not like a one-factor thing, like do this and I'll sort it out, this multiple-prong approach. So go across the website and have a look on there, Rob, and it'll tell you exactly. Just put in, there's a search bar in the right-hand corner, and you can just type in rust in there, and it'll pull up all the articles to do with that, and then it'll answer you step by step, because it's a multi-pronged approach to tackling rust. But even the best of gardeners will have it, and it's usually towards the end of the growing season with leaks anyway. So you have to weigh it up if it is your leak issue. But rust can affect many plants. But that blog post is probably the best thing that's going to be able to help you, because it'll talk you through it all, and it's going to have more info than I can give you here at the moment because of time restrictions. All right. Right. So a couple of other things I want to bring up. Like I said, I've covered a lot of it now. So we know now, if I'm going to put out a video on veg, it's going to be on a Friday, and when I do kick off with the videos on the houseplants, they're going to be on Tuesdays. All right. So that's going to be the new structure for the channel. And I'm sorry for those of you who don't want those videos, but you don't have to watch them. They are additional videos. You're still going to get the same amount of vegetable videos, and we're still going to do all of that. As I'm not changing the direction of the channel, I'm just adding to it. Okay. A prime example, and the reason I say this is the 3 videos I based around the houseplants. I had a few people complaining, and about 125 subscribers left the channel because of it. And for me, that's just ridiculous. I might be putting out some information that you're not interested in, but you joined the channel for a reason and you're still getting that information. So I can't fathom that. But, you know, it's each their own. You know, my channel is not for everybody, but it is my channel. And I will do, you know, I'll make the videos I want to make. But like I said, guys, don't take it to heart that I'm just going, oh, well, this is now going to become a houseplant video because it's channel, because it's not. I'm just adding that additional to what I'm doing presently. So if you like both, then you doubled up on the content. Now, speaking of content, we all know what TikTok is and how crazy TikTok's gone. And although I've got a TikTok account, I've uploaded 1 or 2 videos to it and I've not done anything with it. And the reason for that is I think it's quite hard to bring people from one platform to another. So YouTube has now tackled that issue and they've brought out a feature called YouTube Shorts. And essentially it's like a 1-minute video of exactly the same thing where it's precise. So it's a great way for me to give you just specific tips on one item, quick and short and everything else. Now, I am going to be incorporating that into my filming, but it's not happening on this channel. And the reason for that is because I don't want it to start affecting watch time and everything else, which will then ruin the recommendation system that YouTube has. Okay, so if I was to start putting them on there and then you view the whole 1 minute of it, it's bringing my watch time average view duration down. So I don't want to do that. So I've created another channel. Okay, the link is in the description below. It's called Simplify Gardening Shorts. And what's going to happen on there, once I get 5 minutes, I'm going to start producing a video, and I'm hoping to do at least 5 a week. Just shorts, snappy tip videos. Okay, it will be for some of you, it won't be for others. Okay, the main information is still going to be on this channel where I do the full in-depth videos with all of the big tips and everything else, but I'll just be like, you know, if you've got problems with slugs, you can try this and this type of thing. It's a 1 minute short and, you know, stout video, and it'll be put on there. The other thing I'm hoping it will do as well, because YouTube really want to tackle TikTok at the moment, because an American company bought part of TikTok, and I think they're panicking over it a bit. So YouTube are putting loads of work into these shorts at the moment. So so this channel now, which is down below, will be on there, and the videos will start later on in this week going on there. So what are your guys' thoughts on that at the moment? Let me know down in the comments before I disappear. So Mark, the organic gnome, he likes things with short, concise answers, so that's good. Let's have a look at Alpha from CW, seems to like the idea. Skinny Jean Gardner says, nice studio, thanks. I worked my backside off trying to get this place sorted. I can tell you should have seen it when I moved in. As you can imagine, it was really old shop that had been torn out and everything else, and I got in here, the walls have got plastered, but I've had to paint everything, and but it's given me the space I need now, and that's the main thing. How long I keep it for is another thing, but for the moment it's doing well. The only draw side is just out the door there is a busy road with a shopping street on. I'm hoping that the traffic isn't too bad at the moment. I have got the grills down, so that's all good. Well, guys, I think I've yacked on long enough today. I hope that you've got some answers out of this first Gardener's Question Time. This will be a series that will be ongoing for some time. They may not all be live. Some of them will be recorded videos, but in this format where I'm just answering questions like we have today. Or it may well be a live. I'm not sure yet. I haven't really decided on what's the best thing. And because of work, I can't be here every Friday at a specific time because I may be working. So if I'm in work, there may be a recorded video, but if not, it might be this. And it's not happening every week. It's just going to be filling in for when I can't get in the garden, things like that. So anyway, guys, I hope you've enjoyed that. Like I said, I'm Tony O'Neill. This is Simplified Gardening. Remember, you reap what you sow, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.